One of our subscribers recently asked a powerful question. Why isn't Congress mandated to get people out of poverty? Representative John Larson has been trying for decades, but Congress has ignored this for 54 years. That's the topic of today's video, and I want to thank that subscriber for raising it, because it's a question that gets to the heart of how our government works and why real solutions take so long. If any of you watching want a video on a specific topic, please write it in the comments. I pick many of my videos directly from your requests. So today we'll break this down into clear parts: what the Constitution actually says, what Congress has done in the past, what John Larson keeps proposing, why his bills stall, and how all of this impacts poverty today. If you appreciate clear explanations and sourced facts, please hit that like button and subscribe to Social Security Post. Together, we can keep spreading awareness and push for the changes that matter most to seniors, disabled individuals, and working families across America. A lot of people believe Congress should be obligated to act on poverty, but the reality is different. The U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to lay and collect taxes and provide for the general welfare. This means lawmakers are authorized to spend money to improve people's lives, but they are not mandated to reduce poverty or guarantee economic equality. This distinction is critical. Authority means they can pass programs like Social Security or SNAP, but without a legal requirement, it all comes down to political will and votes. The Supreme Court confirmed this in 1937 in the famous case Helvering versus Davis. The court upheld Social Security as constitutional, explaining that Congress has broad discretion to decide what falls under the general welfare. In short, Congress can choose to pass anti-poverty laws, but it's not required to. This is why we see so much variation over the years. Some periods, like the 1960s, brought the war on poverty with new programs. Other periods, like the last few decades, have seen gridlock and very little action. When John Larson says Congress has ignored the issue for 54 years, he's pointing to a specific fact. Social Security has not had a legislated, across-the-board benefit increase beyond the normal annual COLA since the early 1970s. While COLA adjustments keep pace with inflation, they don't raise the basic benefit structure. That means, for more than half a century, Congress has not voted to boost benefits across the board in recognition of growing costs seniors face. Larson's Social Security 2010 Act tries to correct that by adding about a 2% increase for all beneficiaries. This 54-year timeline matters because it highlights how Congress has been reactive rather than proactive. They allow inflation adjustments, but haven't stepped in with stronger measures to keep pace with the cost of housing, healthcare, or food. For retirees and disabled workers, this means their real purchasing power has barely improved since the 1970s, even though the economy has grown dramatically. So when Larson says ignored, he's talking about this failure to modernize benefits in a meaningful way for decades. To be fair, Congress has passed major anti-poverty laws over the years, but none were mandated by the Constitution. Social Security was created in 1935, unemployment insurance came alongside it, food stamps were formalized in the 1960s, Medicaid and Medicare started in 1965, and Supplemental Security Income, SSI, was established in 1972. Each program represented a political choice, not a constitutional requirement. That's why you see patchwork improvements rather than a guaranteed path out of poverty. The impact of these programs has been significant. According to the Census Bureau, Social Security alone lifts nearly 27.6 million people out of poverty every year when measured under the Supplemental Poverty Measure. Without it, poverty among seniors would skyrocket. These programs prove that when Congress acts, poverty rates fall. But when Congress stalls, people struggle. The data is clear. Policy design directly changes how many Americans live above or below the poverty line. As of 2024, the official poverty measure in the United States was 10.6%, which equals about 35.9 million people. That's more than the entire population of Canada living below the poverty line. When we use the supplemental poverty measure, which accounts for programs like food stamps and tax credits, the rate was about 12.9% in 2023, showing how program cuts and expirations hit families hard. What's important here is how volatile these numbers are. In 2021, when Congress expanded the child tax credit, child poverty hit historic lows. But when those benefits expired in 2022, the child poverty rate more than doubled. This proves Congress holds the keys. Policy on or off means millions of families lifted up or pushed back into poverty. It's not about whether solutions exist, it's about whether lawmakers choose to use them. Larson's Social Security 2010 Act is one of the clearest blueprints to strengthen benefits in decades. His plan would increase benefits by about 2% across the board, ensure a minimum benefit equal to 125% of the poverty line, and update how COLAs are calculated to reflect seniors' real expenses. The bill also protects current beneficiaries while making the program solvent longer by lifting the payroll tax cap on very high earners above $400,000. The minimum benefit is especially important because the current special minimum benefit, created in 1972, has eroded so much that many lifetime low-wage workers don't qualify. By setting a real floor of 125% of poverty, Larson's plan ensures no senior who worked their whole life would retire into poverty. It's a simple but powerful change that aligns Social Security with its original purpose, preventing old age poverty. If Larson's plan is so straightforward, why hasn't it become law? The answer lies in the rules of Congress. In the Senate, most legislation requires 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. Even if a majority supports a bill, a determined minority can block it. That means Larson's bill needs bipartisan support, and Republicans often argue that higher payroll taxes are a non-starter. There's also the issue of budget reconciliation. Congress sometimes uses this process to pass spending bills with a simple majority, but the Byrd Rule limits what can be included. Many of Larson's provisions, like changing how COLAs are calculated, might not survive reconciliation. So, even with political will, the rules of the Senate make it extremely difficult to pass sweeping, anti-poverty legislation. Another reason Larson's plan struggles is the budget math. The Social Security 2010 Act would cost trillions over the coming decades. To pay for it, Larson proposes lifting the payroll tax cap so that high earners contribute more. But critics argue this is a tax increase, and many lawmakers shy away from anything that can be framed as raising taxes, even if it only affects millionaires. This is where the politics gets messy. Everyone agrees seniors deserve fair benefits, but when lawmakers look at the Congressional Budget Office score showing trillions in added costs, the fight turns partisan. Some want to cut benefits to save money, others want to tax the wealthy, and in the end, the disagreement often leads to no action at all. One of the clearest examples of congressional inaction is the Social Security Special Minimum Benefit. Created in 1972, it was designed to guarantee a floor for people who worked long careers in low-paying jobs. But because it was not wage-indexed, it has eroded to the point where many workers don't qualify or receive very little. In effect, the minimum benefit failed to do its job. Larson's plan fixes this by establishing a true minimum benefit equal to 125% of the federal poverty line. That means a worker who spent their life in jobs like home health care, janitorial work, or agriculture would no longer retire into poverty. It's a targeted solution that restores dignity to the people who worked hard but earned too little to build savings. Child poverty is a striking case study in how fast Congress can change outcomes. In 2021, The expanded child tax credit reduced child poverty to record lows. Millions of families received monthly payments that helped cover rent, food, and clothes. But when Congress let the expansion expire in 2022, child poverty more than doubled the next year. That sharp reversal proves anti-poverty policy is not just theoretical, it produces immediate, measurable results. Fast forward to 2025, and we now see child tax credits set at $2,200 under the Big Beautiful Bill, with debates still ongoing about refundability and eligibility. Whether this version helps as much depends on how inclusive the rules are. Again, it all comes back to congressional choice. The levers exist, but whether they're pulled depends on who holds power and what priorities dominate the agenda. Another example of Congress ignoring poverty solutions is the outdated asset limits for SSI. Right now, an individual can only have $2,000 in assets, or $3,000 for couples, before losing benefits. These limits haven't been updated since 1984. That means beneficiaries can't save even modest emergency funds without risking eligibility. It traps people in a cycle of poverty and dependency. There are bipartisan proposals to raise these limits to $10,000 and $20,000 and to index them to inflation. Even banks and disability advocates support this change because it encourages financial independence. But Congress hasn't acted yet. This failure shows how outdated rules can keep millions in poverty simply because lawmakers don't prioritize reform. If you want to know what really reduces poverty, the numbers are clear. Social Security is the most effective anti-poverty program in U.S. history. Without it, nearly 40% of seniors would live below the poverty line. Instead, because of Social Security, the senior poverty rate is closer to 10%. Strengthening Social Security with a higher minimum benefit and more accurate COLAs would directly lift millions of seniors out of poverty. Tax credits also have proven power. The earned income. Tax credit and child tax credit reduce poverty for millions of working families every year. When expanded, they create immediate reductions in child poverty. When cut back, the results are just as immediate in the opposite direction. These programs prove that poverty is not an unsolvable problem. It's a political problem. The frustrating truth is this: Congress has the power, but not the obligation. Poverty reduction is a matter of political choice, not constitutional duty. That's why John Larson continues to reintroduce his bill year after year, hoping to build enough momentum to pass. Until there are enough votes in both chambers, poverty-fighting policies remain stalled. The Constitution gives lawmakers broad flexibility, but it doesn't force them to act. This is why civic pressure matters. When constituents demand change, when seniors, veterans, and low-income families share their stories, lawmakers feel that pressure. But without public demand, poverty programs too often remain low on the priority list. This is where you come in. Congress listens most to their constituents. If you want to see Social Security strengthened, SSI asset limits raised, or child tax credits expanded, you need to call your lawmakers. Tell them your story, how these programs impact your rent, your groceries, your medication. Real stories from real voters carry weight, and don't underestimate the power of collective action. If millions of Social Security recipients, retirees, and working families demand change, it becomes politically costly for lawmakers to ignore. Your voice matters, and your action can be the difference between stalled legislation and real reform. So to answer the subscriber's question, Congress isn't mandated to end poverty because the Constitution doesn't require it. It's always been a choice. John Larson's Social Security 2010 Act is one of the strongest efforts to change that in decades, but without 60 votes in the Senate and bipartisan support, it remains stuck. That's why raising your voice matters. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit like and subscribe to Social Security Post. And once again, thank you to the subscriber who requested this video. If any of you want a specific topic covered, please write it in the comments. I look at every request. Together, we can shine a light on the policies that affect millions of Americans and push for the changes that will truly reduce poverty.